Right, so let's have a look at this mixed up code and see if we can unmix it and see if we can work it out. So it takes a year group as input, it outputs the stage of education the year group belongs to, it can loops continually until the user inputs 0 to stop the program. So those are some places we can start. So we need to get some user input. So now one of the things you need to do is you need to make sure that what you're doing is you are thinking about commenting, thinking about white space, thinking about indentation. It just helps a little bit as well to give you, put yourself in the right place as well. So now one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tackle a little bit at a time and see if I can get it working essentially by bringing a little bit out at each point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of this and I'm actually going to comment that out. Okay, now that's not something you have to do, but it just helps a little bit to make it a little bit clearer about where I'm going with things. So the first thing I need to do is it takes a year group as input. So I'm looking for something that's got input in here, and I want to put a comment in here which basically says take year group as input. So see if we can find that. Oh, there we go. So we've got that there. So I can take that and I am going to grab it, and I'm pretty confident about this one, so I'm going to grab it. I can either copy it or cut it, it's up to you, but in this case I'm going to copy it and put it down here. And the reason I'm copying it is so that if I mess it up, I can get back to it again. Okay, now it wants white space, so I just need to make sure everything's sort of nicely laid out. And it also says it loops continually until the user inputs 0 to inputs to stop the program. So it looks as if it's somehow checking what the user has entered. Okay, so let's have a think about what's going on here. So we need to somehow check whether the user has entered in the data correctly. And we need to loop it. Well, if I'm looking for a loop, here's my loop here. So there's a while loop there. So I want to loop until the user inputs 0 to stop program. Notice I'm using the specification to guide my comments. I think I might need that thing. Okay, now let's stop a second there and think about what's going on. String year or str year is input enter year group, but now it's gone on to year is not the same as 0. Where did it get that from? So somehow it's done something with that. Well, let's see if we can figure out what that is. So let's have a look at our code. Okay, yeah, I can see now what that is. If you look at it, it's gone year equals int str year. So it looks like what it's doing is it's converting that string into an integer. Now what you guys are used to is probably doing this sort of thing and surrounding it with an int. But in this case, it's doing it in two ways, in sort of two steps. So I need to put a little comment in here saying convert input to integer. So let me give myself a little bit more room down here. And what I can do is I can take that now and copy it and put it in there. Now I want to make this have white space and be a bit more logical. So I'm going to make sure that that whole input bit is on its own. And now I get down to this section and loop continually until the user inputs 0 to stop the program. So now I'm into my loop. It's automatically indented me, so I'm starting to get my indentation right. I need to decide if it's something, for example, 1, output primary. So what I need to do is use some sort of if statement. So let's have a look and see if we can find an if statement around here. Ah, there we go. So if year is less than 1. Now be a bit careful here. It's dead easy to make the mistake of pasting that there. If that happens to you, one way of making sure it doesn't is to just go back to the beginning of that line, that colon, paste in there. So if year is less than 1. Okay, so if year is less than 1, so if year is less than 1, well, actually, that means that they're too young to even be in primary, so there must be a message that says that. So let's have a look at that. Ah, there we go. So year is too small, so we can take that. There we go. Notice it didn't quite respond to my pasting there, so I'm just going to make sure that's tabbed in. Thing to be careful now, unless there's anything else you want to do in this bit, you need to pull that back to the beginning of the if statement. And again, I would make sure you're putting a comment in, so I'll do that there actually. So if less than so input is too small. Okay, and now it gets a little bit easier. So let's have a look what might happen. I know that the way the if statement works is it goes if, elif, and then keeps doing elif until I get to an else. So I must have an elif now. So let's do this in a logical order. So if they are less than 7, less than 13, less than 12, let's go for less than 7 and see if we can do this in this order first of all. There we go. So if the year is less than 7, well, they must be in primary. Okay. And again, I can put some comments in like to help me with that. So again, I can put some comments in to help me with that. So, so if between 1 and 6, year group is primary. And now I start to get into the others effectively. So 7, so there must be something between 7 and 11, so that's secondary. So let's see if we can find that. If the year group isn't too small, if they're not in primary, if they're not in secondary, and their year group is too big, they must be in college. So must be in college, as must be 12 or 13. Oops. So let's see if I can find that. Well, the way you finish an if statement is with an else, so I know that. So I'm going to use an else there. And the only one I've got left there must be that one. There we go. So that looks like that's my logic done. And I've also put comments in. I put some spacing in as well. I'm going to make it a little bit prettier by breaking this whole if statement into one section, so it just makes life a little bit clearer. Okay, well, it said that it had to continue looping until the input 0 to stop the program. Well, I haven't asked them again, so I must have to ask them again for the inputs. So I must be having to do the same sort of thing as I did before. And I can see that I've got these two lines repeated. again, so I can do that quite straightforwardly. I can just ask for the input again, and then I need to do exactly the same thing, which is to take that one, and it doesn't matter that there are spaces, doesn't matter there aren't spaces, okay. And what we've got here now is we could, if we wanted to, put the comments in above here, so we can ask user for another year group or to exit. And looking at it, that looks like that's my program done. Start through finish. If you want to, you could delete these things. I've copied and pasted them from comments because it's easier just to see. Notice how I've sort of thought my way through it, and I've thought my way through it by actually using comments and white space at the same time.